Welcome to How Not to Be a Founder, the podcast where we ditch the highlight reel and get real about the mess, mistakes, and mayhem of startup life. I'm your host, Tom, and in this series, we're diving into the stories founders usually keep to themselves, the one that hurt, humbled, and ultimately taught them the most. Today, I'm joined by Ben Reed, former British Army Sergeant, who transitioned into the tech world and founding Redeployable. Ben had a career where he worked in sales, he worked in both field sales, then into tech sales, earned incredible amounts of money, bought himself his dream car, but he realised it was all very materialistic. He then moved on, founded Redeployable, which means a lot to him. It's an incredible business and has learned a lot of valuable lessons. He's someone I've always spoken to and has been a great kind of a friend and a peer to me over the past few years since I've known him. Listening, it's an amazing recording, and here we go. Ben, how you doing?
Tom, how are you doing?
Good, mate. I'm good. I would say long time no see, but we saw each other 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think we had a couple of drinks, didn't we, in London? Yeah, not a lot. Might add. It was only a few.
Yeah, it was. We were drinking responsibly.
Very responsibly. I'm drinking like I've got a 3-month-old baby. Is what I was doing. So.
Yeah, life with kids is completely different to our previous lives, where we had no kids and kind of had no responsibility.
It makes you consider like actually having any drinks whatsoever when you go out. So
yeah, waking up at 4 a.m. to a crying baby is definitely one way to shift your drinking habit.
Yeah, I'm pretty much off alcohol, other than the occasional blowout every probably 3 months. And then it resets me for another 3 months. So
good. Well, look, thank you for joining us today. Obviously, other listeners would love to hear a bit more about you. Tell us what was your background before becoming a founder, and kind of what kind of triggered that leap to go and work for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, similar background to you in a sense of I was in the military for I did 12 years as an aircraft engineer by trade. Started with sixth form, going to university, and then realised that's absolutely not what I want to do. I had an older brother and an older sister in the military, so it was a kind of easy next step for me to jump ship from sixth form and join the military. I did 12 years. It was good. Enjoyed it. I was ready to get out at the time of getting out. Didn't particularly love being an aircraft engineer, but it was kind of like the second thing on the list when you join the military. You know, you take, what's that test called that you take when you first join?
Oh, the barb test.
Is it the barb? There you go, the barb. The barb. I scored pretty well on the barb, and like the first one was Royal Military Police, and then the next one was avionics technician. So I chose avionics technician because like that was the next one down. Got out, didn't want to do that. Wanted to move into tech. My brother had actually moved into software sales. He kind of carved his way through like car sales and telesales, and then eventually landed in the software world. And I was always kind of following what he was doing, looking at the money he was earning as well compared to my sergeant's wage in the army. So that's what I did. Couldn't get into software initially because I'm an aircraft engineer, and like who's going to hire an aircraft engineer? So I started selling. Got the piss taken out of me actually, but like selling photocopiers in North London for a big company called Ricoh. Is great, like door-to-door sales, like commodity sell, like difficult to sell. Quite an aggressive environment. Like that didn't faze me at all. I thought it was a really good learning experience. Then got into software 18 months later. Global, mid-sized, like $500 million annual revenue company. Loved it. Started working. They acquired a ton of businesses, so they acquired an organization called PeopleVox. So I went and worked with a founding team at PeopleVox. Got the bug for the startup thing. Thought that was great. Working within this smaller group in this bigger company. And then took a head of sales role in London. Did that for 10 months, then jumped ship and started my own thing. So that was coming on 3 years ago now. Feels like about 10.
And what was that trigger? What made you think, you know what, I could go be VP of sales for Europe, or I could go and work a different enterprise and kind of think about how you could join C-suite in 10, 15, and obviously have a very lucrative career as a kind of extremely accomplished seller as you are. What made you think, you know what, forget that. Forget the structure, forget the very clear career ladder. I'm going to put it all on the fire and go all in by myself.
Yeah, I mean, I ask myself that every day. So I was on a significantly higher number, like salary wise, back then than I am now. I'll promise you that. I think it was like autonomy. I wanted to be the master of my own destiny. I regularly see like people who are like helping veterans transition straight out into running their own business. And for me personally, that's not something I couldn't have got straight out and started my own thing. I needed to experience. I needed to become more commercially savvy. You know, like I needed to be in those bigger organizations, understand it, and then working in that startup space, I just realized like, no, this is cool. This is kind of fast moving. People are kind of making it up, right? They're every day figuring things out, and I just got the bug for it. Working directly with founders, I realized, like they're just, smart people, but people who've just taken a bit of a chance, a bit of a risk. They've seen an opportunity, they've got an idea, they've obviously got a bit of cash behind them, and they've gone for it. And at that point, I was pretty good at my job in tech. I'd saved a load of money. I mean, I'm not a massive spender, so like I had a lot of money in the bank, and I was like, give myself 12 months. I give myself 12 months runway. I had the cash in the bank to not have to pay myself for 12 months to figure stuff out and understand exactly what it is we were going to build. So that's what I did. I mean, the first step, funnily enough, was like incorporate a business on Company's House. Like that was the first thing I did. I did that whilst I was on paternity leave with my first child, my little lad Freddie. I just did it on that 2 weeks off. Started writing a business plan.
And did you find those little wins, like those first steps, really quite rewarding? So I remember when we set ours up. I remember, going on Company's House, getting the approval, and then like when you go in and sign up for your first business bank account, you don't realise it's as simple as just opening a bank account. You have to wait for approval because like you have to have like a simple business plan. It's like, oh god, yeah, they've said yes. Does this mean that we're legitimate? You look back and think it was just opening a bank. But at the time, it feels like a massive.
You don't know. You don't know. There's not like. I mean, I've worked with our accountant now for the last 2 years, and like he laughs that the first thing I did was incorporate a company. He's like, that's probably not the first thing you should do. I was just like, if I do that, I'm gonna commit. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Like, that was my mindset at the time. Like so many people have these great ideas or have like what they think is a great idea, but actually just don't act on it. And then I was like, am I going to live in deep regret in 10 years time that I did nothing? So it was just more like, just commit. It's just about commitment at that point. If I didn't do it, I could have used every excuse in the book, right? Paid a lot of money. I didn't need any more money. Financially, I wouldn't have needed to earn any more money than we were earning for like the rest of my life. It was doing all right. I had a baby, timing's not right. I'm having a kid, but then you roll on and you're earning a bit more money and like, then you're going to do it, or you're going to have another child. So now you got two, and, do you know what I mean? Or you're buying a bigger house. And so I just thought, commit. But it's funny that you don't know at the time. I think it's almost good that you don't know that much at the time.
Yeah, it's that kind of like blind ignorance. It's like being a child, isn't it? Like when a child jumps off the sofa, you're like, what are you doing? But they kind of have to learn. And it's, that kind of childish ignorance is definitely a helpful thing as a founder. Can you kind of put your finger on a moment where you went, I mean, it could have been in childhood where you've always kind of been entrepreneurial, always thinking about how can I build something that people like? How can I sell something? How can I create a service and kind of feel like I'm progressing in creating something?
I don't know if like I hear like these stories of like these entrepreneurs who've been entrepreneurial since they were younger. I did things when I was young. I mean, I'm from Burnley, right? Like I'm not from an affluent area. I used to get dinner money. I used to go and buy 6 packs. I don't know if you've ever heard of Quick Save. I don't know if it's a supermarket. It's good to Quick Save in the morning next to the bus station and buy like 6 packs of cans because I knew that 50. In the school it was like £1 a can, and I could sell them 50p a can. Just do stuff like that, but I don't think that was necessarily being entrepreneurial. I was just trying to get some more cash, right, to spend in the vending machines at school. So I don't necessarily think I've like it's been in me to want to build companies in the past. I think the more I've got into the world outside of the military, the more I've been like, you can literally, you're in a little box in the military, right? You're like, they're in this thing. As soon as you get out, you can do anything. I was like, you can do anything, you can literally do anything you want. And I think there's that kind of freedom that, and the experiences that then spurred me on to go and start my own thing.
I think, yeah, you hit a point. Joining the military is kind of the antithesis of being a founder, because you're literally joining a very, very structured, very safe, regular employment where your whole career is set out week by week for you, and actually just turning up every day almost guarantees a 22-year career and progression to the next phase. As long as you, obviously, you and I know a lot of people who have cocked that up and probably got demoted and on the way. But when it comes to a career, it literally, you can join at 16 and you can leave at 40 and have achieved and done everything without really having to think about it. So far, 3 years, redeployable, going from strength to strength. Is it what you expected?
You know what? At the end of, I gave myself that year's runway, and then I decided to raise some cash based on what we'd learned. And I'd say we were not messing around, but we're figuring stuff out in that first year, like being on my own. I hired one person to come in and work with me, a really good friend from the military. And a guy said to me, I was umming and ahhing where we just carry on and don't raise any money and just keep going on this like track. And I'm quite competitive and I want to move fast. And I met a guy who'd taken 2 companies to Y Combinator, a British guy. And he was like, just take the cash and get close to your customer, because you might think you're building this right now, but you might be building a bank in the next 2 years. And he's like, and I think whatever you expect at the beginning of this, like, is going to be completely different at the end of it, because you're learning all the time. And if you like truly are innovating, you're figuring out what problems are in the space that you want to work in. You know, we're quite mission focused in like what we're trying to achieve. It's like the mission hasn't necessarily changed much, but in terms of how we're doing it and who we're engaging with, like, that's changed significantly. Yeah. So I'm in a completely different world than, completely different world than 2 years ago, even in terms of what we're doing.
And I mean, it's interesting you say that, because I read something this morning where it said Hugging Face, obviously, what, they're $3 billion a year in revenue. I think it's something insane.
Tamagotchi.
Yeah, they actually started as a Tamagotchi, and it just shows how you can set out to build something and then go completely 360, end up around the houses.
It's Slack in it. Slack was the same, weren't they? Do you know the story of Slack?
No, tell me.
Slack. I can't remember what they started as, but they failed. But they'd got, and I'm going to absolutely savage the story, so forgive me. But in the context of like the background of it, they used this tool, which was like an open source tool from somewhere in Scandinavia, from a student in Scandinavia, which allowed their developers to talk in the business. Right. And the business failed, but they had this amazing tool that was like awesome that they were using, that there's nothing on the market. And that's how the business bombed. They had this tool, and then they started to develop this tool, which then eventually became Slack. I've savaged that story. The point is like they didn't start as that, right? Yeah. They had to be in it and just be existing and surviving and figuring things out to get to where they're at now.
And I think that's a really good kind of story about being a founder. Is it's very rare that what you set out to do is actually what you end up doing. But it's also having that ability, and you highlighted it when we left the military around. It's the ability to go, okay, we'll work it out. Yeah. Work it out. And something that most British people be aware of is that as a population, we tend to be able to do quite a lot with quite a little. We're actually quite a small country, et cetera, but we've always punched above our weight. And I think that it's that kind of mindset that we have of we're up shit creek without a paddle, but you know what, we'll work our way out of it. It's kind of testament to being a founder. Talk about the fundraising experience. You said that you were kind of and ahhing, you weren't sure if you were going to fundraise, and then someone obviously said, look, I want to write you a check. What was that journey like? Was it active? Was it reactive? How did that come about?
I always thought like fundraising was an event when I first started this, when actually fundraising is fluid. Like you're just always fundraising. But like, so we've not gone down the VC route. Considering it, but I'd also considering like an angel round. We're raising again at the moment. But it started with people I knew. I had really good connections in tech from my time in tech, and like I had a reasonable reputation. So just started with a couple of people that were close to me, who are founders or like CEOs or whatever. He puts them in, and then they introduced me to some other people, and then they introduced me to some other people. So it's just like a fluid thing. It's not like hey, we've raised this chunk of cash. I know like an institutional round might be a little bit different, but my experience has just been try and build and not spend a whole lot of time raising money. Whereas actually more recently, I've probably spent a little bit more time purely on the investor stuff. So I much prefer speaking to customers, to be honest, than I do investors. Like it's way more fulfilling for me is like having those conversations with the clients and figuring out what we're trying to solve for and how we can help them. But I understand like the game we're in. You need money to build things, and you need to move at a reasonable pace, and that requires, if you're building tech, requires external investment.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, it sounds like it's been relatively smooth sailing in general. I mean, what was that first investor meeting like for you? Did you meet the first? Did it really know your pitch, or did it literally just come around? Someone, oh yeah, Ben, we were chatting last week. Here's a check. How did you first deliver that, and how did it first come across? Was it a car crash? Did you nail it? What did you learn?
Do you know what? I joined a paid community of people at that stage called Startup to Stand Up, I think it was. I'm not part of it anymore because you quickly like age out of that kind of thing, right? Like needing pitch decks or what's SEIS, what's EIS. Dude, it's hilarious, isn't it, when you think about like the investors wanting to invest more in second-time founders than in first-time founders, right? I can see why they would want to get involved more with second-time founders, because now the pace in which I've got the learning, what especially at that first phase is like is done right. But I joined this startup community, and that helped because I didn't know about ASAs. Like I'd never heard of ASAs. I've never, SEIS versus EIS. You just don't know at the time. So I figured out like I paid 90 quid for some pitch deck software, I think, at the time. Started to build out like what we were setting out to do, and started to approach some investors on like based on what we were doing. It was easy because like one of my first investors was like a really good friend, founder of a tech company. So he just said like he's backing me more than he was backing the idea. I'd co-sold with his business in the past, and he understood like he knew who I was. So like, it kind of kicked off for me because of that connection, and then he introduced me to another investor, and then that investor put in. So it's a weird one. I guess if you didn't have like the network, which I've not got the greatest network in the world, but I've got a decent network. It made it a little bit easier if like you've got a decent reputation coming into this thing rather than just some random angels that you're reaching out to.
Yeah, I think that's really important. That anyone who's not a founder, there's kind of two parts to this. Being a first time founder, 4 years ago, I absolutely get it. Even why failed first time founders find it easier to raise a second time.
Yeah.
Because even when you failed, you made mistakes, companies wound up, whatever. Just so much is being learned. And secondly, just kind of having a network's incredibly important. You don't need to be a superstar. I mean, I've met numerous VCs, I'm sure you have over the time, and actually it can sometimes hurt because deep down that actually it's just about you. They're backing you. You're not necessarily backing your business idea, especially at pre-product, pre-seed stage. So when you do get a no, and it's a no for the TAM or the market size, actually they're saying whether they believe in you or not. And when you get a lot of no's, you actually have to realize maybe it is me, and that is tough. But then on the flip side, when someone says, "No, Ben, I have faith in you. Here's a check for X amount, £100,000," you go, "Okay." Like it's quite a positive feeling.
Yeah.
You're a man who's been dealing with customers for a long time. Talk to me about how your approach of dealing with customers when you were enterprise sales, you're a head of sales, compared to when your customers are actually your customers. Does that make sense? They're not your company's customers; they're kind of your customers. How is that a change, kind of emotionally, I suppose, more than anything?
I was like direct sales before, so like I wasn't dealing with the account management side. Like when I was an individual contributor, but I always tried to act with the level of integrity, like the the best feeling is actually walking away from a deal. It's not like the best feeling is winning a deal, but like the feeling of like telling somebody I don't think this is right for you is like it's a good, because they're surprised, right? Salespeople try and sell stuff. So I've always tried to operate in that way, and I think that kind of like carries over from the military. I was, as an aircraft engineer, integrity was pretty important when you were fixing things that can drop out of the sky and kill people. So like I've always operated like that, even if I didn't have to deal with the implementation and management of those customers. But in this case, obviously, you're a little bit more emotionally tied to the journey, right? So like reputation's everything. So if you do a bad job, it's not great on the company and on the brand. So I care like deeply about making sure that we're delivering on what we say we're going to deliver on. But ultimately, I've always operated, I think, in a way where you got to do the right thing. Like, I think it's better. It helps you in terms of your reputation. It helps, like, as an individual or as a business, if you do the right thing. And yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question, but it don't feel like it's changed for me significantly, other than the fact that right now, you've got significantly less customers and bigger one. Like, we work with like enterprise clients. So if you bomb one of those, like there's a big risk to the business, but also like we're trying to expand in a certain area of market industry right now. Do a bad job for one of them, there's only maybe 10 main players in that space, and they all know each other, and so it's got to be careful and do the right thing.
And are you leading the sales yourself at the moment? Do you have a couple of members of staff underneath you in sales?
No, I'm direct selling right now.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So it'd be interesting to speak with you down the line when you go from being a founder-led sales to handing that over to a VP of sales, and kind of knowing that you're putting your in complete trust in that person's hand when it comes to positioning that brand externally. If you thought about that, the look on your face then was, that might happen.
Yeah, it probably won't happen this year. I think we'll bring somebody in from a sales perspective, but working under me. But like inevitably, that is going to happen with like we're doing some things in the US at the minute. Like, the likelihood is it will. In the next 12 months. But at the minute, I'm more trying to obsess over process and what we're selling right now. I don't think bringing somebody in to sell is the right thing to do right now, but it will be interesting.
Yeah.
But it's process. It's just process. As long as you clearly define, like, you got some good customers and you know what you're selling and you understand the ROI and you understand like the discovery, and it's just, if you bring a good competent salesperson in who gets it, who's passionate about it, who can follow the process, I don't think it's going to be too much of a challenge.
And the chances are, I assume they'll be a veteran, so they'll have the right ethics and morals and kind of understand the kind of wider problem that you guys are trying to solve.
There are a lot of tech sales people who are veterans, yes. That's the likelihood is. I don't think like hiring for us is going to be like the massive challenge in the future, because there are a ton of people who are behind what we're setting out to achieve. So.
Do you have any anecdotes of customers you're dealing with at the moment, or customers you've lost, or customers you've won, where you look back and you be like, "What a cock up that was!" Like funny stories, anecdotes.
Not even a cock up. When I first set up the business, we didn't know exactly what we wanted to build. So I was like, I knew sales, I knew tech sales, and I knew veterans. So I was like, for the first 12 months, I'm just going to recruit veterans into tech sales. That was my plan. Because then you're like getting close to customers. I was like, I'm going to go after the biggest brands I can find. So like people like your Cisco's and your Sages, and like I got on their PSLs, right? I was the preferred supplier in like the first 6 months on people like Cisco, people like Sage. We didn't do any business with them really. It was like it's just a 10 months of due diligence to get on the PSL, and then it was not 10 months, maybe probably 3 months with some of them. But I think it was just I wasted a bit of time initially because I didn't know on some of these bigger organisations, when actually at that stage doing what we were doing, should have just gone to some of the more nimble like scale ups. I would have said, if I was to turn back time, that's what I would do now. It's like, who's took a Series B, Series C, who's hiring salespeople fast at that point. That's not what we do now, but that is definitely a learning that I've gone through in that first 12 months in particular.
Yes, it's kind of like you feel like you've won an enterprise, and then 3 months later you've made no revenue out of it, but had like no sleep because you have to get lawyers involved for due diligence and paperwork, and it's just a complete waste of time.
Oh, dude, it was a waste of time. Yeah, it was a waste of time. But we wanted to get Cisco as a customer, so like, I don't know, maybe a vanity metric. I don't know, trying to get something like that. But
And
yeah,
also, it's a logo for your website.
yeah. It's an expensive from a time perspective logo for the website.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So on that then, what's the biggest mistake you've made so far? 3 years in.
Biggest mistake I've made. Oh, I think it's just hire slow, let go fast.
Right.
I would say
Expand on that.
trying to run before you can walk. I wanted to go a little bit faster when we first raised, and I brought some people in that, and no fault of their own, right? I brought some people into an environment where we just weren't quite ready in terms of what we we're looking for. I felt like we knew where we were going, but actually there was a lot more learning that needed to happen close to our customers to define exactly what we were doing. So I'd just be a little bit more conservative in terms of bringing people into the business, in particular full time. And I would leverage, which is what we do now, a lot of contractors, freelancers. Our business is 6 full-time people, but probably 15 people working like across different areas of the business. But
Yeah.
I think that's been my biggest learning. I would definitely lean more on like part-time freelance who come recommended from network than I would full-time hires.
I think that's probably been highlighted by the state of the global economy now around the gig economy. How you literally can get it's quite accepted that people do fractional, they do a day here, day there. Really kind of solves that problem because of how many star steps there are. And did you feel that you learned that the hard way, or did you kind of see it before it became too much of a problem?
Yeah, probably a little bit of both. I think hired one or two people a bit too quickly, and then could have maybe called it 6 months earlier, maybe.
Yeah.
3 months earlier. So I reckon I've learned a lesson. I won't make the same mistakes twice. And again, like, it's not even knocks on those people. It's like the environment that you drop people in, right? You've got to take a certain level of responsibility for these kind of things. You've got to create the right environment to hire, say, a salesperson, or to hire somebody into the business who you want to have a little bit of autonomy in a certain area. Like, you need to have the right structure in place. I know that's difficult to say in a startup because it's wild, and like, our world a month ago is completely different to our world right now. But that for me is the biggest learning. People are the biggest cost in a business, right? Like,
Yeah.
really. So.
And what's your goals as a founder? What are you trying to achieve? Is it, like you said, vanity metrics? Is it, do you want to be, is it lifestyle? What's your kind of personal North Star goal with this journey?
I needed to do something that gave me a little bit more than cash, because I had enough cash in tech. Like, I didn't really, like I said, I'm not like buying. I bought a stupid car once, and then like I sold it in like 6 months. I bought a stupid car. I always, when I left the military, wanted a 4 Series BMW. That wasn't the stupid car. I got one when I moved into sales, and then I bought another car. I won't say what it was, when I was in sales, tech sales, and it was the dream car. I would never imagine I could ever have. Right, this car. I thought it was amazing. But then after 6 months, I'm walking onto the drive, and I'm like, what's the next car I'm going to get? And I was like, shit, like, what am I even saying? Like, this is the dream car. And so I sold it. Anyway, I don't have a car now. My wife's got a car. I don't have a car. So, like, money, it's more than just money for me. I needed like a little bit of mission, a bit of purpose, and something that I really could get behind. So that's one thing. Like, we always put the veterans, service leavers that we're serving. That's the first thing in the business. Like, any decision we make is all like, well, how does that affect them? How does that affect the decisions that they make? So that's the big one. I'd be lying to say financial freedom in the long run. I've taken a lot of risk, and I've got a lot less money now than I did at the beginning of this. So, like, again, I'm not looking to be a billionaire. I'm looking to gain like financial freedom to decide on what I want to do next after we've been successful in this. So that's super important. And then I'm super competitive. So I just want to win, and I don't know what win means, but like I just want to win, and that's just how, you know, I'm from like a working class background. Graft. I just believe in like you've got to graft, you've got to outwork people, and you've got to win.
Yeah.
And who knows what that is in the long run, but all I know is that we're working pretty hard to win. You know.
Yeah, I suppose that's the thing. It's the game that never ends. So it's kind of never over. I mean, obviously they talk about. You'll see it in numerous reports. Billionaires will go. I mean, look at during COVID, the space race between Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. They're all going to space. Elon obviously had SpaceX, but the others, it just seemed like I want to be first. I want to be first. It's like you're all like multi billionaires, and it was then just became almost an ego thing of who could get to space first. It's just the competitiveness.
I think like win is just like, can you have a significant impact?
Yeah.
And like significant impact to me is not staying in the UK.
Okay.
Like, I want to look back on something and go, fucking hell, I can't believe we did that. And I don't know what that's like winning. Like, oh my God, I can't believe we managed to do that. And I
Legacy.
think that's like, it's not even legacy. I don't even think it's legacy about it's not even legacy about me. I think there's the thing like with your kids where, you know, they could be a lot more financially secure right now, but actually, are you better off being a role model to them to show them that you can go and do whatever you want in life if you put your mind to it? So there's that element of it. But like legacy, I don't need my name on plaques or anything like that. That's not really what I'm looking for. I can't really describe it. It's just more about achieving something that people probably, you know, thought you couldn't achieve, I would say.
Yeah, I think you hit on something really interesting there. Is you referred to it. You're a working class lad from Burnley who's worked incredibly hard to get where you are, and I think that's that recognition. And like you said, it's not personal recognition per se; it's societal recognition of you can go and do and achieve great things if you work hard and you take risk and you make some wise decisions. I think that's incredibly important. So tell us about what you're doing at the moment, redeployable, and what are your kind of, if we spoke about achievement there and trying to go international, but what do you think would be that, okay, we are now starting to have global impact? What do you want to see?
I'd say hundreds of thousands of people using our technology to make transitioning career easier. You know, the veteran thing is a big thing for us because it's the community we've come from in the UK, but like the US military community, which is obviously significantly bigger, it has the same challenges around like trying to navigate this like weird transition out of the military where you've got a ton of things stacked up against you to try and figure out where you land, but you've got a lot of skills and like the right mentality to survive and do really well and thrive in these organizations. But you know, I joke about I'd never heard of Salesforce when I left the military and I moved into tech, like 2017. It's not that long ago. Never heard of Salesforce. So I think getting our technology in the hands of hundreds of thousands of people a year is significant. And then we work with employers to help them understand and guide these people to the right options, right? So just making sure we've got the coverage of these opportunities with these big organizations, because loads of great I don't think like specifically in the military community there's a lack of opportunity. I think it's a lack of opportunity, a lack of understanding of where you as an individual fit into the world, not just now but in the next 10 years. And I think tying that all together, I think is a big thing for us. I think when we tackle that, and I think we will tackle that, I think there's a wider challenge at the moment, and I think the wider challenge is the job market is significantly shifting because of AI.
Yeah.
And people, unfortunately, won't have jobs in the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years through automation. And you know, 12 months ago, we were hiring content writers. You know, we're not hiring content writers anymore. I had a PA for a bit, right? I've spent £30 a month on Superhuman, and I don't pay £400 a month for a PA anymore. So like, people can say, "Oh, well, it's not happening." But I think it absolutely is happening, and I think it's going to continue to happen. And that whole white collar knowledge worker piece, that's changing, right? Paralegals and auditors and all of these types of roles are going to become, people are going to have to pivot out of them. So I think the bigger opportunity for us as an organisation is how can you enable people who maybe have come from an alternative background to transition to new things in the world as the market changes.
I think you absolutely hit a nail on the head there. I was speaking to VP of Sales at Codility last week. You might know him, Todd. I think we're mutual. He was saying what they're seeing is the world of employment and is shifting significantly. Obviously, there's a big talk about skills-based hiring, and that has been the talk of the town for the past 5 years. But actually, because we don't know what's coming, because the evolution in AI is happening, and automation and robotics is happening at such a speed, there's actually kind of going back to the character of the individual, their adaptability, their flexibility, because the job that most people may get employed for next week, in 18 months' time, will be a completely different job. Yeah. And their skills will be important, but how quickly can they learn? How quickly can they adapt? And I'm pretty sure the military are some of the world's best in making a very good out of a bad situation, and their ability to
learning agility. You're training throughout your whole career, right? Like who better to come in and transition, like who better to come in and get up to speed quickly, but also adapt to new situations or changes to the job. So I think they're a great group for it, and I think it's one of the most challenging career switches out there in the world. So I think you solve it for veterans. Like I don't see why you can't solve it for other communities in the future.
Yeah, and I think for those listeners who don't know, there's been some incredibly successful veterans who have gone into very senior positions, and not just in government or in defence contractors, because that's all a bit obvious.
Yeah.
But you look at some of the careers of the people we know. I mean, Ben Legg, ex-COO of Google Europe, was a captain.
Dude, there are like tens of thousands of veterans in senior positions, and you find them everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's not like this is not an unusual thing. I think what you will find though is like some of them, or a lot of them, took some wrong turns initially to get there. Like they just needed to find their way in the world. Now imagine if you could shortcut that for somebody, so you could get them to that kind of financial benefit of being in the positions they deserve to be in half the time, right? But they're everywhere. They are literally everywhere.
And I think when you and I both worked in the hiring space for a while, or kind of being exposed to it, that there's obviously a lot of focus on diversity and inclusion and skills. But I know veterans is a protected identification or category, but actually it's not just a classification; it's actually a value add, like you rightly highlighted. And I think it should be championed a lot more. I'd love to see some data around diversity of a C-suite or diversity of senior leadership. How many are ex-military or ex-police or ex kind of frontline workers? I'd be fascinated to see that data of the impact on profitability and revenue when it's not just all Harvard MBAs, but actually people from a military background as well. Final question. If you were to be a founder again, so if you're a second-time founder, what's the one thing you'd do completely differently?
I come in with a co-founder.
Interesting.
I come in with a co-founder. Yeah, I did. I brought in a later stage co-founder in June, July last year, and it's the best decision I ever made.
And why is that?
Because there comes a point where you can't physically, you get decision fatigue, making decisions in the business about everything with very little information, like very little data, and you're moving so fast that I'm good at the commercial side. I'm good at the sales side. I understand marketing way more now. I understand product now. We built initially on like a low code, no code tool or cost, figure out the product. So I'm well versed across the whole business. But actually, when you get a little bit bigger, you need certain skill sets in certain areas. And I've just luckily found a co-founder who complements me really, really well in terms of her skill set. She's a get shit done. Operational, loves getting stuck into the weeds, isn't particularly interested in being present on social media or going on to sales calls. So for me, that has been the number one game changer for me. So if I was going to do it again, I would 100% do it with somebody else.
And do you think also an added dynamic to that would be, you're obviously incredibly driven yourself, but sometimes having someone not to hold you to account per se, but feel like I need to do it for them as much as I'm doing it for myself. Does that make sense?
I think have you read the book Traction by Gino Wickman?
No.
So Traction, you've got the role of like and I'm definitely not calling myself a visionary, but you've got the role that in their terminology, a visionary and an integrator. And a visionary has 10 ideas a week, right? But, 8 of them are terrible. One of them's really good, but it just now's not the right time because you've got a plan and you don't have the budget. And then one of them's a great idea that can be used right now. An integrator is the person who ties all this together and tells that visionary that 8 of them are shit. And one of them's good, but we're going to park that. And I think that's a really interesting dynamic, to be honest, in a business, because you've got like this person who starts. I think it takes a certain character to start this thing, right? Like to go score you. Okay, I'm going to quit my highly paid job and I'm going to spend all my savings and I'm going to probably get into a little bit of personal debt and but then you need someone there who's like in the weeds of the operational side of the strategy with you as well. So I just think I just wouldn't do it again solo. Not a chance.
I think I know who I am in my relationship with my co-founder. Now you've said that.
You do.
Yeah, very clearly. I'm always full of ideas. Well, look, Ben, thank you so much for coming on today. Where can people find out about you, Redeployable?
Yeah, I'm a LinkedIn fiend. Post a lot on LinkedIn. So Ben Reed, Redeployable on LinkedIn. You can play with our tech, our AI career coach at redeployable.io. And that's it. That's it. Or obviously drop me an email, drop me a line, get in touch with Tom if you want to have a chat. We're WhatsApping quite a bit.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Cool. Well, cheers, Ben. And we'll see you all soon.
Tom. Appreciate it, buddy.